So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all, even though the light is more.
So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to moderate the session on financing on energy efficiency. I will introduce the panel, the distinguished panelists, in a minute. I just want to welcome everybody for that session. I think we heard already yesterday in the opening the importance on energy efficiency also in the current crisis, Middle East crisis, where we are right now. My name is Mechthild Rohrsdorfer. I'm the Deputy Director General of the DG Energy of the European Commission based in Brussels. So we are at a point where we are looking at a profound transformation. As I said, we heard about it yesterday, and we need to look at energy efficiency from affordability aspect, from a competitiveness aspect, from a decarbonization aspect, but also from a security, energy security aspect. As we know, energy efficiency is the cleanest, cheapest, and fastest way to cut demand, to cut emission, but also to strengthen our resilience. Every unit of energy saved reduces the need for new generation, frees up grid capacity, and also lowers infrastructure costs, making electrification, which we want to accelerate, technically feasible and economically viable. That's why the IEA has estimated last year that doubling the global rate of energy efficiency improvements by 2030 could avoid 30 million barrels of oil per day. But as we all know the benefits, efficiency remains one of the most underfinanced areas of the clean energy transition. Less than 10% of global energy investment flows into it, despite every euro, dollar, or yuan spent on efficiency, avoiding 2 to 3 times more energy demand than the same spending on the supply side capacity. The IEA has warned us that investments in energy efficiency must at least triple by 2030, reaching $1.8 trillion to meet our energy and climate goals. Without acceleration, we risk locking in inefficiencies that undermine our target and would prolong our dependence on those volatile markets, leaving both households and business vulnerable to price shock. We also know that public budget alone cannot bridge the investment gap. We need a full financing ecosystem uniting governments, financial institutions, and industry to basically de-risk projects, standardize solutions, and attract private capital at scale. And that's why we have set up at the EU multi-stakeholder approaches like the European Energy Efficiency Financing Coalition, which, for example, brings along EU member states, financial actors, and industry to scale private investments. So today we gather leaders from policy, finance, and industry to discuss how governments can embed efficiency as a structural pillar of energy security, which are the financing models from blended finance to green bonds, how can we mobilize private capital at scale, and how industry can make projects more bankable and attractive to investors. So let's now hear from our panelists, how can we collectively unlock this opportunity, not as a burden, but as the smartest investment in our future. I invite to the stage Erika Gupta, who is Head of Sustainability for Siemens Financial Services. Erika, welcome. I would like to invite Drew McDonald, Country Head of the Bank of America in Canada. Welcome, Drew. I would like to invite Lavinia Bauer-Ochse, Global Head of Sustainable Finance from Deutsche Bank. Welcome, Lavina. I would like to invite Emmett Koo from Sequoia Climate Foundation. Very much welcome, Emmett. And Maxine Fu, who is president and founder of her company. So let's sit down and go through some questions. I will try to have also questions from the audience at a later stage. So thank you very much for joining the panel. As I said, we need multiple players to discuss the question on how to best increase investments and finance in energy efficiency. We have 45 minutes left. I would like to start with a question to Erika from Siemens. How do today's energy security pressures and the ongoing energy crisis shape perceptions of energy efficiency as an investment? And how might industry help strengthen its recognition? Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. So we're really seeing that increased volatility and the growing pressure on energy, materials, infrastructure, and the supply chain reframe energy efficiency as a core business capability. So if you're looking at energy efficiency, it's truly that first lever necessary to enable competitiveness and resilience. It's making businesses more stable and flexible and long-term ready, because it's no longer just about reducing your energy use. It's about reducing your exposure to price volatility, to additional operating costs. You can bring your operating costs down. It's enabling you to really separate yourself from some of the volatility that we're seeing in that market. And also with digitalization and AI, it's no longer a one-time upgrade. It's becoming something dynamic that can adapt your energy use to the environment to really minimize the costs that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis. When I think about how do we really scale that, I think it's a lot of what you said in your opening remarks, and I've heard throughout the day yesterday as well as last week at London Climate Action Week, and that's needing to work together to collaborate, create partnerships across finance and technology, nonprofits, and governmental organizations that allow us to aggregate smaller projects into something investable and really create impact at scale.
Thank you very much. I've heard that a couple of times, that the energy efficiency projects, you need to scale them up. It's not like a wind park financing somewhere in the North Sea or elsewhere in the world, but you have to scale up and make that happen. So I would like, and of course you can then also interact with yourself, but I would like to go to Drew from Bank of America. In the context of the energy security challenges, what consideration most influence which financing mechanism are used to channel capital into energy efficiency projects which have both immediate but also lasting benefits? And can you share your experience from the Bank of America?
Thank you for having us, and hello everyone. In the sessions earlier, we heard about energy efficiency and the correlation to national security. And that's having an impact on how these projects are financed. And it really takes the coordination of four components: the private markets, the public markets, industry in general, and government. And while the financing mechanisms are very complicated, they're specific to the project, they're specific to the customers, they're specific to the grid in question, one can think of them in two ways, or from two perspectives. From the perspective of the payer, and from the perspective of the provider. And traditionally, from the payer perspective, financing was always done on a return on investment calculation. Essentially, to use the finance speak, the net present value of the project had to be greater than the cost of the implementation, and that made the project economically viable. Increasingly, there's another variable that's coming into the equation, and that is what we'll call sort of speed to grid or access to the grid. And this is driven by AI and the demands on the various grids. And what we're finding is that the hyperscalers are increasingly willing to play a role in the financing. And the reason they do that is there's a benefit to the stability of the grid, the expansion of the grid, and the efficiency of the grid. So they're willing to provide, let's call it efficiency as a service to various utilities or grids that provides access, does two things. It reduces the speed to the grid, and it reduces the demands on the grid at peak times. They do that because it's a benefit net for all. Okay? And that requires a lot of technology. The technology varies. There's advantages to it because it provides financing in various forms that have periods of time that match the capital investment of the investments that are required, which can be quite long dated, say 5 to 20 years, that some parts of traditional financing struggle with. And so we see them playing an active role.
Thank you. Thank you also for mentioning then the importance of grids and AI. We heard it before. Of course, there are separate sessions on that, but of course it comes up in every session, and I think highlighting the role AI can play for grids. We have just launched in Brussels 2 weeks ago AI at Grids with different players from the technology side, from the energy side. It's also, again, bringing the different people together like we do here today. So thank you very much for highlighting a key of those points. Lavina, Deutsche Bank, what are the key conditions governments need to create for blended finance to unlock private investments in energy efficiency at scale?
Thank you, Mechthild, and thank you for having me. Really, blended finance works well where governments address an execution gap rather than the economic case. What we need is to address really the barriers for projects to come to market, also to standardize certain elements, in particular if we want to create scale, and also to create a pipeline of investable projects. So blended finance is really about getting the right robust debt structure together, identify who is willing to take which risks and how to de-risk to syndicate it out. But it's also about standardization in order to create scale. We need stability and consistency in frameworks, really to overcome insecurities on the investor side. It's something we really aim for, also while at the same time asking for more pragmatic approaches in some of the regulation, which is well established but still can be turned down. But having said that, I would also highlight that transparency on data and measures is really, really key in order to get that standardization off the ground. So it needs the right type of data and the right set of data in order to really bring down due diligence cost, provide to investors transparency and reliability of data points, but also it needs to be stable and locked in at some time to have plannability. I could on for some time, but it's actually not only about the governments. I think we've heard already it's about collaboration, it's the banking sector, it's the end user, it's the technology providers and the policy setters as well. The financial service sector was quite active over the last years. We all are aware of instruments which have been well established, sustainability instruments and frameworks which are out there, but we've taken it to the next step. So what is happening at the moment is to really look into transition finance framework, which is not solely down to single instruments being newly identified. Transition finance is really addressing what is needed to bridge the gap into between dark green projects to also encourage and recognize companies who have ambitions, identified strategies outlined, and transition finance can help mobilize financing in order to make efficiency, for example, more financeable.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. I will go to Amit from Sequoia Climate Foundation. So what role can philanthropic capital play in de-risking energy efficiency investments and helping build the project pipelines needed to attract larger scale private finance? Again.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for the question. And I want to begin by thanking IEA for organizing this conference. It's very timely. I mean, at Sequoia, we always say that, first of all, we are a private philanthropic foundation based in California. And we always say that, if you're not working on energy efficiency, then it's running like on a treadmill. You're running faster, but not really getting anywhere. So it's work on energy efficiency. And the goal that IEA supported, a couple of years back of tripling renewable capacity and doubling energy efficiency together is really, really commendable. So I really want to, appreciate the work that IEA does. And for this panel, and for having me here with, the great panelists here. Drew mentioned about, different types of capital. You have a government capital, private and public finances, and they are enormous. But there's also one more type of capital, which is philanthropic capital, which is probably smaller in all of this. But the advantage of that is very quick and very flexible. You can deploy philanthropic capital much faster. And that's why, philanthropies like ours are able to create policies or enable policies and markets which otherwise wouldn't exist. And what we really do that once the diffusion starts taking place in any issue, be it energy efficiency or anything, we take a step back, do a warm handshake with private and public capital, and then market takes over. And it's very important for energy efficiency because it requires that kind of philanthropic support. For example, let's take the example of motors, right? I mean, we heard from various speakers yesterday that motors consume almost half of the electricity, and in case of industry, actually it is much higher. The technologies are already available, IE5 and other type of motors are already commercially available. But what we really need is, the scale of demand for high efficiency motors so that manufacturers can really invest into this area. And then manufacturers will also need to signal that, they need to detect the signal that there is sufficient demand for that, so that they can invest using public and private capital. And then third aspect is really the rules of the game. Do we have right policies, incentives, standards, and labels for customers to really choose those high efficiency equipment? Now, all of this requires sort of a coordination, and which is where the philanthropy comes in. Philanthropies can bring different stakeholders together in a room, provide resources for technical assistance and capacity building so that the stakeholders are talking to each other. A market is really taking a shape, and then it actually takes off. So I think that's where philanthropic capital like us plays a huge role. And we are very proud of our work in partnership with IEA and many others who are also here in the discussions for the work they are doing on energy efficiency.
Thank you very much for underlining your experience. And last but not least, Maxine Fu, you're founder and chairman of the Shanghai YOE Information Technology. Maybe you can explain a little bit what's about. But my question would also, because you are a provider, and from a provider point of view, what are the challenges to get financing? Your personal or your experience in that?
Sure, thanks. A little bit of introduction. I'm doing the digital twin for the real-time navigation and calculation optimization for processing industry about the energy saving. So that's a very complex real-time actually through AI calculation. So it definitely brings tremendous amount of energy saving if they operate better. So it involves with AI, involves with IoT. And back to the question about how it's so difficult, I think I have a lot to say, and the rest of four I can, probably get financing from you guys. I'm just joking, but the point is energy efficiency is not as sexy as a new innovative hardware projects, right? You couldn't see it. That's, it's a small scatter. And especially the conflict with the CapEx upfront, but a very long, the benefit through years. The point is OPEX, the collect, it takes so long, and CapEx much big on the upfront. Then how to manage risk and also this kind of a cash scale, I think that's the structure problem everywhere. That's the first one. Second thing is about if it's like most energy efficiency projects deal with some tech, but for the financing branches or the organizations, it's quite difficult to access or to even to track what's the newest technology, evaluate how efficient it could be, and also to whether finance it or not. The point is how to manage risk. So that kind of a gap is not only about the financial gap, it's about the knowledge gap. But I think today AI probably can bring a lot of gaps to be closed and to help to cross to each other. The third one will be the whole flow and back to the risk problem is the risk management shall be bounded into some kind of worries. It's not about the length, it's like a 10, 20 years, like the income instead of immediately payback. So second was whether there is a policy change and whether the consumer wouldn't pay for it, because from a provider side, if we don't collect money upfront and we want to do EMC, and whether we really can collect the money or not, there was no guarantee. But if government can do more assessment or kind of get some kind of insurance in the middle, probably that's going to be helpful. So the point is, the last about the feeling is most people wouldn't feel about how important it is, because everyone likes new, like a renewable energy to put the infrastructure over there. But this one is you don't feel about it. Even for consumers themselves, whether they want to borrow money upfront and to do so instead of investing some kind of a hardware. Most people like the second one, right? So whether it could be bundled as the service plus hardware or some kind of setup over there could be helpful. And eventually small projects also need evaluation. So whole bundle the services to one company as a bridge, then connect to the financial institutions might be another solution. So I think that's the response so far. Yeah.
Thank you, and I think we understand that it's less sexy, as you said, it's less attractive, and it has a lot of upfront cost. So that one of your...
And also awareness, people wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
Because you will feel more excited if you see the kind of new machineries standing over there instead of everyday operation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, very good. So you can always react to each other, but I will start a second round of questions, and I will start again with Erika. So one way of doing energy efficiency is also via electrification and digitalization. We already heard about it. So how do you think that electrification and digitalization make energy efficiency project clearer, easier to implement, and more appealing than what we heard before for investors looking for reliable long-term returns? So basically, how to make it more attractive, is electrification and digitalization one way of doing it?
Let's start with digitalization. I think one of the really valuable aspects is visibility. So if you only pay your electricity bill or your gas bill once a month, you're not thinking about it every day. But if you have digitalization, metering data that's constantly visible, and you can see what you're using every day, but also what you're saving every day, and being able to have that digital twin that can model this is what you would have used had you not implemented, and really show that saving, show that cost benefit of the technology you've adopted. I think that's a really powerful tool to really give visibility to the challenge, as was mentioned too. Electrification, we like to say we want to focus on efficient electrification. Electrification is very powerful when it's done in a way that's working with the grids and with the suppliers, so that we're solving a system of systems challenge here. It's, yes, we can electrify one building and decarbonize it, But if we can't get that grid interconnect, or we create further instability on the grid due to the additional load, we're not really solving our greater challenge. So really thinking about electrification as dynamic, so that it's working with our grids, avoiding those peak demand periods, and electrifying as efficiently as possible.
Thank you very much. And we from the Commission are just right now working on an action plan on electrification. We call it smart electrification or efficient electrification, just to see how much more, of course, in the transport sector we see already with the Middle East crisis, electrification is accelerating, but also with heat pumps and in other sectors. But it must be smart, connected with the grids, and there is a lot behind in the system. So fully agree on that. Drew, can you share an example of where financing approach helped enable an energy efficiency investment that might have been otherwise difficult to advance? So do you have a few examples from your experience?
Happy to. And then if we go back to sort of the two perspectives out, you look at the financing question, you look at the payer perspective. Lavinia mentioned it, there are well-established financing tools for sustainability products that have been in the market, both on the private market and the public market for many years. They're well established. The more recent trend is I'll go back to the provider perspective. And if we think of energy efficiency as a service, the capital expenditures for some of these efficiency gains can be enormous. And it can be difficult for certain of our clients to incur that capital expenditure up front, where the benefits come over many years, particularly in the early years where what called the ramp up is in the outer years. And from the provider's perspective, there are ways to sort of shift that risk or share that risk among other industry participants. So I mentioned the hyperscaler, but also governments can play a role so that the benefits of the CapEx is invested, but the risk is shared between the providers or alternative providers like the hyperscalers and governments. And what that does is the benefits accrue to our clients over time, but the CapEx is funded up front. And there are various tools and case studies out there to help with that, and it's a recent phenomenon, I'd say, in the past year. And my expectation would be that will become an increasingly important piece of the puzzle to finance energy efficiency across the industry.
Thank you very much. I would agree, and I would ask others if they can share that. But also Lavina from Deutsche Bank, which policy and market conditions are needed to give investors the confidence to move from individual transactions to large-scale financing of energy efficiency? So you can build on what has been said, but also react if you have other examples from Deutsche Bank.
Very happy to, yes. So from a banking perspective, energy efficiency is really no longer a sustainability topic in the niche.
Yeah.
It's really a core lever to create competitiveness, resilience, but also credit quality when we look into assets, but also exposures overall. What is needed is really stability in frameworks. That's something we hear echoed from our clients continuously. Investors need security that they take investment decisions in a stable environment and they understand the risks they are facing and can make a decision on that basis in a stable legal and regulatory framework. But also standardization and really market ramped up. So it would be fantastic to see governments engaging in how to create an investable pipeline, get transparency on pipeline. It could involve also aggregation of certain project portfolios, but really understanding also through government initiatives how efficiency projects are being in the pipeline, and investor demand will follow, basically, if transparency is provided. That's one element. But I would love to build up both on what Maxime was saying and Drew was saying, so the sexiness of efficiency measures. Yeah. I really see efficiency as creating access to energy, because we all need, for the transformative steps ahead, abundance of energy sources available in order to fuel the growth we want and the competitiveness we want. And having efficiency measures in place means you provide access to energy to others. You bring your own costs down, but we would love to see regions where we have accelerated low carbon energy build out, investments in grids and storage. But one element would be to also reduce our energy consumption where we can and have the measures already. So we need to act in both directions. We need the accelerated build out and we need to save energy in order to create competitive environments. And one element are the new financial instruments also Drew was reflecting on. In particular, energy efficiency as a service, where you can calculate efficiency gains into the payback of your financing exposures, will really make a difference. And it shifts this perspective from the initial capex focus many institutions and corporates still have, more to a view on what's the cost of ownership of assets, to have a longer perspective and understand. For example, we are looking into transformation also. What does it take for, in particular, mid-corp clients to adopt AI and understand the business as usual cost of running AI with energy supplying it. So it's really shifting away from the initial capex in order to take procurement and investment decisions more into the long-term perspective and understanding how you bring down long-term cost.
Thank you. Please, yes.
I'd add
Thor.
a similar comment is
Yeah.
it's in this, as energy as a service, it's important, you mentioned it, to measure the efficiency and to track it, which feeds into the long-term nature of the CapEx that's required and the funding vehicles that will facilitate it. It's important to measure and track it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, please come in.
Yeah, I used to lead energy efficiency for McKinsey Asia for 6 years. And for McKinsey, it's definitely the service as the consulting services to the clients. And I think the most important thing is about the number, because everything needs to back to the foundation, the baseline, and the delta, the gap, and how long does it take. It need to be very crystal clear, because the solution itself need to be very easily evaluated. Doesn't matter by the payer, doesn't matter with the financial institutions. So the accuracy, the number, and also not only the immediate income from the saving, but also they have also side benefits by doing so. All of this can be kind of calculated. Then, but for the financial projects, it need to be very clearly on the payback. So the number one is about the kilowatts or the joule, and the other one is about the monetary stuff. So I think to talk about standardization, it need to back to the quantification. And the accuracy quantification is a very, very, foundation to make everything available. Otherwise, it's probably is easily to say, but very difficult to build the trust based on the facts. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I would agree. Anna, do you want to come in also on the financing model, Amit, or any reaction to what you just heard?
Yeah, I mean, I think financing models are obviously important for all the reasons that my fellow panelists talked about. I mean, the way we think about it is that, our resources are best used to design these innovative financial models. Some of these needs to be tested, made aware to the different stakeholders, and that's where, I think our resources can be best utilized. When it comes to hyperscalers, data and digital twin that you talked about, we are very excited about the time value of energy efficiency through demand flexibility measures, right? I mean, now that more and more renewables coming to the grid, and we know how hard it is to expand the grid and permitting and creating more poles and wires, can we use energy efficiency in a way that it not just help customers to reduce their electricity bill, but also enable the grid to more and absorb more renewable energy on the other side. So the locational value, the time value of energy efficiency in avoiding more infrastructure development in a short-term basis, and have more and more renewable comes in on the other side. I think that is an area that we are very excited about, and we are thinking what kind of financing mechanisms, models, or philanthropic investments are needed to enable those policies and market in coming years.
So a more systemic
more systems view.
approach. What could be the financing models for those? As you say, you are exploring that right now.
I mean, in some cases, these could be the guarantee mechanisms, these could be insurance mechanisms, various type of instruments. But it also require a lot of evidence building. Why would a bank or a financing institution, let's say a banking or non-banking financing institutions, let's say in South Asia or Southeast Asia, where the capacity is already limited, would understand of how demand flexibility work and why they should provide that capital. That require a lot of hand-holding support, capacity building, and that's where role of philanthropies really matters.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody wants to come in on those points? Otherwise, I will open the floor to the audience. So, are there any questions, comments from the audience to one of the panelists or to all of them? I must admit, the lights are not very clear from this side, so if you want to raise a question or have a comment from, I see one hand here, please. I hope we have, otherwise you need to speak up loud. I don't see any mics here.
Yeah, in fact, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Ricardo Velasquez from Mexico. I am the director of Acciona Energy. We're Nesco. And I am the president of the Mexican Association of Energy Efficiency Companies. So, well, we were discussing yesterday some topics. So, I don't know if someone can give me your thoughts of Latin America, maybe, or you're eager to invest in energy efficiency ventures there. Because the cost of capital is different from North America, Europe. I mean, we have operations all over the world. So I don't know if someone are aiming to or eager to invest in Latin America. And just pop up that.
Okay, thank you. So the question was from Mexico, from Energy Efficiency Association, and it was more about the differences in the markets in North America, Europe, Asia, also Mexico, maybe compared to others. Is there any knowledge you can share with the differences? You come from different regions here. I don't know, you want?
I can start. So
Yes.
we really, as Siemens, we're operating globally, and as Siemens Financial Services, we're providing financing globally. So we do offer, energy efficiency as a service in Mexico as part of our commercial financing opportunities. So really what we see is the models that work in the north will work in the south as well. So it's really just about translating those working models to a new region for us.
So you see one model works in different regions. True? Yeah?
Bank of America is similar. We're a global institution. We have operations around the world. My personal expertise is Canada, but I know we're active in Latin America, including Mexico, and all the financing tools we deploy are on a global basis. The application might vary by jurisdiction because the regulatory environment is different, or
Yeah.
the customer base is different, or the economic environment is different, but the principles are the same.
Okay. Levina?
I would
The cost of capital is different. Yeah.
Yes.
I would also echo what was said already. So the instruments are the same, the cost of capital is different, but also the projects differ slightly. So I think we are more talking about decentralized solutions, also on the generation side. We discussed yesterday that there might be hub solutions quite of interest, that you don't think about standalone solutions for individual corporates, but rather hubs which are supplying various end users at the same location, which we see. But also there are great initiatives going on in Latin America, in particular in the hydrogen production, for example, where really benefits of a local specifics can be leveraged to become even exporters of hydrogen. So that's something which is very, very interesting for the whole market, and definitely Latin America is playing a role there alongside, for example, some states in Africa as well.
Okay, Ahmed, your experience in
first of all,
California, you are based?
I'm based in California, but our work is across the world. Thank you for the question. We focus on all the regions where either the emissions are already very high or growing at a rapid pace, and Latin America, Southeast Asia, South Asia, where we focus a lot. we do work in Mexico and also in Brazil, basically from standards for equipment perspective, and that helps ESCOs to really work with their clients for those equipment. In terms of cost of capital, as I said, the cost of capital is high because, in some of these economies, ESCOs are small, and the banking institutions are not really aware how to lend that money to the ESCOs because of their smaller books and capacity, and the risk involved in energy efficiency because it's a new topic. And that's where some of these insurance mechanisms, risk-sharing funds or guarantee facility, that really helps, right? And philanthropies help in designing these programs so that the banks like World Bank, IFC, they can come in and invest money that reduces the cost of the capital for ESCOs. Also, the coordination requires different stakeholders, right? I mean, how do you enable capacity of the banking institutions or other financing institutions so that they understand the value of energy efficiency, know how to recover the money? Is also a role that some of the grant capital plays.
Thank you. Maxine, yes, please.
Yeah. Actually, I think different regions or countries will face different challenges. So definition of energy efficiency will be very different among different countries. So first is what real problem need to be solved. Second, it's about the delta. It's like a delta from China, so what can be increased of the green energy, or compared with Africa, is about the coverage of the light, right? So the point is what exactly is needed need to be evaluated first. Second, back to financial perspective, it's about the source of funding and how to manage risk, because that's not only about the cost of capital, but also about the political and the kind of long-term or the other stuff of risk over there. And then I truly believe it will be the structure of the central frame there, but however, we'll deal with the local stuff. It need to be localized. And definitely, I think probably Siemens got many countries to manage services. Probably also got some points over there, but I feel it wouldn't take the very similar stuff to make it available. But however, the point is attention, so as well as we want to solve the problems and make sure we understand what's the delta or the benefit over there, and can be calculated by monetary and strategic, and that's going to be easier. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. There is another question here. Yes, thank you. Please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Okay, so I am from India, from an organization called Electric Power Transmission Association. So maybe it's a comment, more of a comment than the question. So Amit can take it, maybe he can react to this. So what I have found in countries like India or South Asian or developing countries or emerging economies, there are appliances available in the market which are energy efficient, and the rating is also given, but they are more expensive than the one which are less efficient. So the customers have a kind of, they don't really go for investing more money in the beginning. They don't look at the long-term electricity saving. They go for the initial cheaper cost, and they end up consuming more energy. And yesterday we also heard a comment that countries like India and Indonesia, the air conditioners are 3 times more power guzzlers than maybe Japan. And 90% households in Japan, they own air conditioners, India about 20%, and it is going to increase. So when you add up the scale, it is gigantic, isn't it? So how can we ensure that the customers who are going to buy an appliance, mainly air conditioner, which is a power guzzler, and it's a need, it's not a luxury anymore in countries like India, which are very, very hot, how can we incentivize them to buy a more efficient product, maybe at a higher price? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good question. At least in Europe, we have energy labels, also for appliances like air conditioners, washing machine, dishwasher. It goes from A to E, basically, and you can see the consumption, you can see what makes the water, energy input, and so on. And that has a price. The highest A rating is generally more expensive than C. But if you calculate over time, what you gain in energy consumption is then after a few years. And the label is one of the most success, I think, at least in Europe, for buying appliances, and it helps. We are right now, that is not for discussion here, developing a label for data centers. It's in the making, but sustainability of data centers, also it starts from an energy efficiency point. But I think it's a good question about the price and the appliances which are more energy efficient. When you buy, of course, an air conditioner, you normally keep it for 10, 15 years. So many, good question, a good comment, but hopefully also some reactions from the panel.
Well, I can start because the question
From
is
India.
from India, and I have some experience. So, like Europe, India also have a labeling program, a mandatory labeling program for air conditioners from 1 to 5, which means the 1 is the lowest efficient air conditioner, 5 being the most efficient. And they started the program back in 2008 and made it mandatory in 2010, which means any air conditioner which is being sold or manufactured in India has to comply with the labeling criteria. Since 2010 to now, average efficiency of air conditioners in India has gone up by, I think, 32%, or maybe more than that, but that's my information. And they subsequently, in a process of revising it by another, I think, 15% or something in next 2 years, and they'll be almost at par, or if not at par, very close to the standard in China. In China, it's 1 star to 5 stars. So 1 is being the most efficient and 5 being the least in China. On your question on cost, actually, it's very right question. I mean, not just professionally, but I've seen in my own family. My mother actually bought 3 air conditioners which are 3-star rated, not really 5-star rated, although the cost was not the concern, right? So I think what India did really nice, and many other countries learned from that experience, is creating a super ESCO, right? Creating a government-backed or public sector-backed organization which could take the maximum risk and aggregate the demand to reduce the prices. And the Ujala scheme, or the LED revolution that has happened in India, is a result of that. In a very short time, they reduced the cost of a light bulb or LED light bulb from 100 rupees, about $1, to almost 10 rupees, like less than, I don't know, 10 cents actually. So it's a pretty significant decrease in the price because of the amount of light demand aggregation and that they were able to do. So similar policies, demand aggregation, procurement policies, technology innovation program. There was a cooling price competition a couple of years ago, which then recognized manufacturers to innovate technology and reduce their prices. So some of these schemes could be really helpful. I think what is important is to understand what has worked where and why things didn't work in certain way, and learn from those experiences, and then implement. And given that now more and more digitization is happening, there is an opportunity to empower customer to make those choices as well. As grid is becoming more and more digitized, there's AI, digital twin, customers can look at the data on their mobile phone, make more rational choices, which otherwise was very difficult a couple of years ago. So I think I'll share some of those examples to remain optimistic that the amount of air conditioning that will be needed in South Asia or Global South is enormous. And you rightly pointed out what can we do today so that we don't lock into inefficient technologies for next 10 to 15 years.
Thank you, Amit. And I think you really nailed it down on the informed decision, empower the consumer. Without a label, you hardly compare. That helps you to compare. And of course, at the end of the day, it depends also on your budget, of course, but at least you do an informed decision. We have one more question here, probably the last one, but please.
Okay. This is Marcos from the New Zealand Energy Efficiency Government Agency. Quick question for you, Lavinia. I really liked the comment around government should try and address the execution risk, not the economic risk. Do you have any examples of where you've seen that done really well, this public-private partnership?
Lavinia?
Thank you for the question. So the reason why I made that comment is really that we need to see economically viable projects hitting the market. there's often the reference that we are lacking capital. That's not my observation. It's more the lack of economically viable projects. And that's why I think where governments would step in and support projects which wouldn't happen otherwise, I'm not convinced that's the right approach to take. So where we see that execution gaps are addressed, it's about different areas. It's about providing access to information. It can be also with regards to training or enhancing due diligence elements. So the initiatives we are also part of are, for example, H2 Global, which is in the hydrogen area. It's founded by the German government to create more import and demand security for green hydrogen brought into Europe. The same is also happening for Australia. But one has to say, while the means and the instrument is quite well thought through, we still see some obstacles in the element of is it being picked up. So what's still happening is really that the demand side is not committing yet to price points they deem still as insecure or not committable to. And I think looking into the demand side of things is something which would be the next step to take, because we really need to have security that the demand is there, where investment decisions with high capex, long delivery times are necessary. And yeah, those investments will come through if you know that the demand will also be there once you're ready to supply.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have 1 minute left. I have one quick last question. If you look ahead to 2030, 4 years ahead or 3 years and a half, what specific action would most accelerate energy efficiency investment? What is your concrete commitment? What do you think if we all say it's scaling up and energy efficiency as a service. Can you name one thing in view of 2030? I start with you, and please be short because we are running out of time.
I actually believe in AI to bring the gap and the visibility and also the quantification among different parties. So that's something for foundation, and everyone can solve the problems through use the tool and across each other.
Thank you. Ahmed.
I think we are already very committed to energy efficiency, but going forward, from area perspective, demand flexibility and taking a system view is something that we are very excited about, and we are sort of doing a call of action to other philanthropies to also come and join and help to grow our support to the sector.
Thank you. Lavinia?
So I'm also with sustainable AI, but I'm afraid 2030 is too long away, so we need more timely measures to take action. And with regards to the commitment, so we've made a commitment to mobilize 900 billion euros until 2030 as a firm, which is very sizable for our balance sheet. We are halfway there, but that's our commitment to really provide capital to the market.
Excellent. Dror?
Similarly, our commitments to our clients, we do it 3 ways: financing directly, facilitating access to the capital markets, and helping them manage risk. To go back to the cost of capital issue, that can take 3 forms: interest rate risk, foreign exchange risk, and the commodity risk embedded in the supply chain.
Thank you. Evina?
So I would say we really sit at that intersection between technology and finance, and we're not as large as Bank of America or Deutsche Bank, so I'm not going to say focus on mobilizing capital overall. For us, it's really about mobilizing capital that enables new technologies to market, particularly the ones that perhaps there's perceived risk due to unfamiliarity rather than true technological risk. So I think that's really where we can continue to make an impact through our equity investments, our project finance, and our energy and efficiency as a service offerings.
Thank you very much, and I think Siemens has a big role to play in many countries here as well as the financial institutions, the philanthropic organization, and also your company as well. So huge thanks to all of you. I think we heard about the opportunities, but also about the challenges of financing energy efficiency measures. It's not as visible. We need to scale up, to bundle. We need to look at how digitalization in IA plays in, and we need to look at the costs of investments also over time. But of course, the costs are at the start. There are regional differences, but we also heard that the tools are there and used everywhere. So with huge thanks to an excellent panel, and many thanks to you for coming and joining. I think there are more sessions on AI following today, so you will hear more, but thank you very much for now.